Senator Scullion.
Mr President, my question to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator Ludwig. Is the government aware of reports that the Mullabulla station in Western Australia must comply with a destocking order and dispose of over 3,000 head of cattle, and that many other stations in Northern Australia will shortly have to do the same? Given that there are now no export market for these cattle and they are essentially worthless to sell, the owner will start shooting cattle at the rate of 200 a day starting tomorrow. The only viable solution, other than shooting cattle, is to sell them into the live export marketplace. Given this, and that the government is aware of abattoirs and supply chains in Indonesia that meet their desired standards, when will the government fix the looming disaster that they have created and reopen the live export trade with Indonesia?
Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator Ludwig.
Thank you, Mr President. I thank Senator Scullion for his question. I do understand that media are reporting that the owners of a Kimberley station say that they've been forced or will be forced to cull about 3,000 cattle in the wake of the ban on live exports to Indonesia. Nakoa both are from Mullabulla station near Halls Creek indicated that they will start that culling tomorrow. Mr Botha says that there are currently about 25,000 head of cattle on his property, and those are the numbers that need to be reduced. As soon as I became aware of these claims of Mr Botha, I did the following. My office asked the ABC for the contact details for Mr Botha so that we can see what assistance we can provide to him, Mr President. I've asked Centrelink through the Minister for Human Services to make contact with Mr Botha once again to provide him with contact details from the ABC. My office has also alerted the Cattle Council of Australia to Mr Botha's comments and have asked them to make contact with him to see what assistance is available. And of course I will continue to monitor the circumstances. There are, as I indicated, three types of assistance that have been provided. Firstly, it's a $30 million package which provides for payment for hardship through Centrelink. In addition to that, there is the Cattle Council, the Australian Cattle Councils for onshore supply issues that may arise of $5 million. In addition to that, there is industry assistance for those who have been made unemployed as a consequence of the ban, the suspension. Can I then also indicate that those opposite...
Time's expired. Senator Scullion.
Mr President, given the fact that these cattle are worth approximately $600 a head, can the Minister explain which program should this grazier turn to in order to compensate him for the loss of around $120,000 a day that he will lose through shooting rather than selling cattle due to the government's decision to end the trade?
The Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. Well, I indicated that in the primary question was that there are two specific packages. One is there is a $30 million package for two-part payment, which is provided for the type of assistance. In addition to that, Mr President, there is also onshore supply assistance, which is designed to assist for feed and watering and for adjustment and for defraying the costs of transportation, which the Cattle Council have provided a $5 million outline. But in these instances, Mr President, it is one where those details of the contact details from Mr Botha have been made available, will be made available to us, and we will be, as I've indicated, in contact with Centrelink to provide that assistance. But what those opposite are obviously asking for, of course, is that the trade to be resumed immediately. What we've indicated is when there is supply chain assurance in place, the trade can recommence.
Time's expired. Senator Scullion.
Minister, having presided over this human tragedy and animal welfare catastrophe, will the Minister now resign?
The Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. What those opposite, of course, is that with the 10 years that they were in government and they had an ability to address animal welfare issues in this issue, then they did nothing, Mr President. They did nothing, Mr President. What this government has done is sought to ensure two things. Sought to ensure that we do have a supply chain assurance in place which maintains animal welfare outcomes. What we are keen to ensure is that that area provides for a supply chain assurance. And of course, what the opposition now have just abandoned their...
Send a Scullion. Send a Scullion.
I have a point of order on relevance. The question was very simple. This minister has presided over a complete human tragedy and an animal welfare catastrophe. We simply asked him, will he now resign?
That's not a point of order. It's not a point of order. Senator Ludwig, you've got 22 seconds. 22 seconds remaining.
Thank you. And of course, the Australian cattle industry is an area where we do want to continue this trade for the longer term. Those opposite want to ensure that it doesn't continue for the longer term, that it is at risk. It is at risk. Without this suspension in place, the industry has an opportunity to ensure animal welfare outcomes.
Time's expired.